Welcome to the Everyday Engineer. Today we're going to be doing some electrical wiring in my garage. First things first though, if you're not comfortable with doing electrical work, hire a professional. If you are comfortable doing it, watch a few resources, not just one. Some people may not have all of the local facts like the code regulations correct. So what we're going to do is wire this box. This is a GFCI new install box. So new install means that it's got these nails and there's no drywall or insulation on the walls yet. So what I've done, you can see these holes right there and through there, is I've drilled a 1-inch hole exactly midpoint through the stud in order to get it over here to this cable. So I'm going to run that up into the attic. I'm going to run it along this wall, over to that wall, and then I'm going to run it down into my basement where my breaker panel is. And I'm not going to mess with the actual panel box itself. That I will actually hire someone for, just because it's a lot of amperage. And I don't know what the previous owners have done in there. So I'll probably get the rundown from the electrician that I hire. And that way I know a little bit more about my house. So the issue is I've got to come somewhere through here. Now I went into my basement and looked. There's a layer of insulation and then some wires. So I've got to be real careful when I'm drilling this. Because I could hit some live wires if I'm not careful. So what I want to do is I want to go slowly through the studs on the floor and then the studs on the ceiling in the basement. So what I'm going to do first is remove one of these panels to see what I'm working with. If I'm working with a double wall or if I'm working with a single wall. Did a measurement, it looks like I'm working with a single wall. But I'm not entirely sure. Now what I think might happen is that when I remove these panels down here, is I've just got a straight shot into my basement. And that would be ideal because that means I don't have to drill through any floor joists or studs. So I'm gonna take it off. And I'm just taking the whole panel off because if you look, I already removed the crappy step that was there. That piece of drywall is toast. So I'm gonna remove the whole thing and see what we're working with. Cut along the joints. If you've got visible nails, which I do down here, then you'll want to be able to pop those off, or if you've got screws, drywall screws, take those out. If you don't, just cut a square wherever you see a joint, or if it's taped and painted already, use a stud finder, or you can knock, and you'll hear a distinct difference. So you can tell there's a stud right there, but no stud over here, but a stud here. That's one quick way to tell. I'm probably going to end up re-taping most of this anyway. All right. So here's the issue. Is right now I've got this footer which I'm fairly certain is the header of my basement. So now I've got to go in here. What? I think there's studs everywhere. I think it's just one piece of wood. Ugh. Calibrate it. Okay. I think I just hammered where the stud was. Because there's a nail up here. So that would fall vertically somewhere in here, but there's no nail down here. So whoever installed this is bad that they only put one nail in a whole sheet of drywood per plank or per stud. Hire professionals or learn what you're doing. Don't hire the next door neighbor who has the shadiest business. There we go. I picked up one of these really fancy long drill bits. This will be good to get a nice long hole, which will get through the footer, header, all that goodness. Or the foot stud, whatever that's called. I should probably look up the terms if we're doing these videos. This thing's crazy. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill it at not like a steep angle, but so I ran my 3 wires, brought the steel cable down, wrapped it around with some tape, and then pulled it back up. I did that 3 times. That way I pulled my wire up into that little cavity I just made, and then I pulled that up into my attic and down to each individual box. I have some of them tied together though, so let's go take a look at how you actually wire the box once you've fed all the wire around your house. So I've got 2 boxes installed, this one and one down that way. So the plan is, I've got a wire running up into the attic that will go to my panel box. I've got a line from this box, right there, that runs through the studs to that box. And I want to tie them together. And they're going to be on 120 amp circuit. So what I'm planning on doing is I have a GFCI circuit. A GFCI is one of those outlets that has the test and reset buttons on it. Now, if you're doing multiple outlets in series, the one closest to your panel box is the one that you should install with your GFCI protection. If you install it later down the line, any previous outlets will not have GFCI protection. So the first one is generally the best to install it on. Now on the back, there's 2 things, a line and a load. So what we're gonna be doing is, this is my line. It comes from my panel box. My load is gonna be going to any other outlets. So line is in, load is out. So on non-GFCI, it doesn't matter which of the top or bottom. It only matters that you get the hot and neutral orientation appropriate. But this outlet matters. You need to get the neutral wire right, the hot wire right, and you need to get the side right. If you're just using this outlet by itself with no other outlets on the line, it's going to be a line. And then that'll go back to your panel box and load will be left alone. There's also instructions on your, that usually come with these. So you could look at those and they've got the wiring diagram. One of the things you'll want to do is hammer in any wires if you're doing a new install. If you're doing a rework over drywall, you don't need to worry about this. But in new installations, you have to secure any wires, and it depends on your local codes because they might supersede the international or the American code depending on where you're from, based on what your spacing is for these staples. Now you want to check because some codes, mine does, requires one within a certain distance of the box. So I'm going to have to put a wire staple above the box here. And it's pretty simple to install. You just center the wire on the wall. Get it started. Give it a few good whacks. And now it is secure. So you could still move the wire above and below, but that's not moving anywhere. And it's snug, but not tight. Next, run your cables through the box and strip them back. Then what I like to do is bend them. That way you can push them inside the box. So you should be able to fully recess them in the box like that. Same with these ones. And they should be completely in the box. Now I'm going to pull out a little bit of each. I don't want to pull out the whole thing. And you want to start stripping them. I've got these automatic strippers, which I saw on Adam Savage's Tested, and they're pretty nifty. You just take it and you set it for the wire size, and it strips it for you. Now I've got this set for the distance that is good, but another handy tip is on the back of your outlet, there should be something that says back wire strip gauge. And that's how long you're going to want to strip your wires. Too much longer and you risk the wires touching and shorting out, and that can cause a fire. So be careful with how long you strip them. I'm using a plastic box. So normally you'll see in metal boxes there will be a screw somewhere on the box. You have to tie into that with each of your grounds, and that'll ground the box. I have a plastic one, so I don't need to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim these back, move these back, trim them, and tie them together. That way I have a single ground that could go to my switch. So what I'll do is I'll trim these back a decent amount, because you don't want your ground wires being too long, because they are fully exposed. And then what you do is you wrap it around each other. And you want to go in the direction of your wire nut. That way you're not putting the wire nut on there and untwirling your wire. Now that I've got them twisted, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip them where they've twisted. And now there's no overhang where one's overhanging the other. That means that one might make contact with the wire nut, the other might not, and then the other one slips. And if that starts touching all sorts of wires, that's how you start a fire. I'm going to take my third one, and I'm going to wrap this one around as well. And I just want to clamp it. This takes a little bit of practice. I still haven't gotten it down yet, but I'm gonna leave that off. This is the wire that's gonna go. This hanging wire is the one that's gonna go to your ground on your switch, on your outlet, I should say. Now I'm gonna clip these again. And now I've got 3 wires, so these automatic ones are a little bit rough and I don't want to ruin them, so I'm just going to use my needle nose. And I'll just clamp those. Wear safety glasses when you're doing this. I can't find mine right now. I think I left them in my car. But now, once you've got that all trimmed back, the best thing to do is put your wire nut on. Put your wire nut on. And you might need to clamp them a little bit closer. Make sure you're using the right size wire nut. On the back of your wire nut bag, it should say what the wire size is. Mine is used for 3 12 gauge, so that's what I'm using. You should feel it snug up in there. All right, good. Now I've got this all set. I could tuck this back in there, but don't. Some people do. I advise getting some electrical tape and taping this up. That way there's no exposed wire as much as you can. Then what you'll want to do is, after you've stripped all your other wires, which I've done previously, is you'll want to take your outlet, grab a screwdriver, and loosen some of your screws on the sides. Now if you're using 2 of them, loosen 2. If you're using 4, loosen 4. Now what you'll do is you'll put black from my load. All right, this is my load. Black and load where it says load. You can curve them up and around, but I feel like, and that's personal preference, is that it doesn't get as much contact, and you're not going to really be jostling this once it's installed. So you should be fine to install it like that. And you'll just tighten the screw down. Now, black goes on gold, white goes on silver. And that's just how you do it. Do it with all 4. Now there's a little plate down here. You'll see that it's sandwiched, the wire is sandwiched in a plate. Make sure it's under that plate. If it's not, the wire will come loose and you won't get it to work and it might cause sparks. But you'll wire this up, put it in, if you already have drywall. If you don't, wait till you have drywall to do this step. If you don't have drywall, stop where this is at right now and put everything back in the box. And that's called rough-in installation. Now, depending on your codes, your local residence. Usually you'll have to have an electrician, possibly an electrical engineer, sign off on this before you install the outlet. But either way, you need it like this to install the drywall. So once you have the line and load wired up for that first outlet, you'll go to your second outlet, which I've got here. I've wired it up in advance, and I've already made the connections. Now on this one, I've twisted them because it's a different outlet, just to show you what it looks like if they're twisted. And the ground goes around the green. Ground is copper. White is neutral. That goes around the silver. And then black is hot. That goes around gold. And then what you do, you just put it in, install the cover plate, test it to make sure it's good. But if you're doing drywall, make sure you don't attach the outlets or lights. Just leave it at bare wires. And if you're waiting on an inspection and you need to have it done for rough-in, that means get everything done, including your wire staples, which are those staples I installed on the wall, before your inspector comes, because they'll expect you to do that. So, hopefully you've learned a thing or two. Thank you for watching.